Hey everybody, welcome to
Hello.
Britpop React. You're me, BP1, BP2 as always.
Here we are.
We're back at 9/11. We've done some videos now during 9/11 and they've all
Yes.
been pretty spectacular around not just the event itself, but obviously the fallout around the city and around the world, really. So
Yeah.
they've been really, really impressive. This one is the collapse of the World Trade Center, the complete physics.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to know why they came down like they are. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, and you know the reasons why they might have come down. But this is the physics behind
Yes.
the two buildings.
I mean, a couple of things. Obviously, we need to mention Amanda A down here, who has sent us all these sort of super informative videos that we probably wouldn't have sat down and found the time to watch normally. So go back and watch some of those.
Amanda.
Fort Knox, US soldiers defecting to North Korea, all kinds of informative stuff that Amanda sent our way.
Yeah.
And again, you know, I think on that sort of fateful day, when you saw all the firefighters and everything going on in there, and then just to see them literally come down like a pack of cards, you want a house of cards sort of thing. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, exactly why that happened, and hopefully this will shed some light on it. But whenever you see some old, you're watching an old movie or something and it's set in New York and you see those two towers there, they were imposing buildings, and then to not have them.
Well, Home Alone, I mean,
exactly,
you know, Lost in New York, you know, Macaulay
Yep.
Culkin sat on top as it pans in. It's unbelievable to think that that's not there anymore.
Yeah.
But one thing I didn't get, and hopefully this will explain it, is that collapse that you said. You know, maybe I thought, oh, maybe, but for both of them to do exactly the same, it's just very strange. Was it just I would expect to see half a building up, or for people to have had a chance, and I don't know. Yeah, but let's watch it, and hopefully we'll be more informed.
We'll be wiser at the end of it, I'm sure.
All right.
First attack. The huge impact force of the airplane did not cause the Twin Towers to have a tilted fall like this. Instead, the towers stood strong for more than an hour. However, to the world's surprise, the towers collapsed like a house of cards. A vertical fall. The main reason for this strange collapse was the tower's structural design, the perimeter tube design. The concrete floors of the World Trade Center are supported by these trusses. During the airplane crash, the jet fuel burn increased the temperature and caused the trusses to sag. Can you tell what the effect of a heavy and sagging floor on the building? Wait,
dropping onto the other.
We're going too fast. To properly understand the physics behind the collapse, first we need to understand the geometry and design details of this building. The perimeter tube design comes to life when you rearrange evenly distributed columns in a building to a tube-in-tube arrangement. These office spaces were incredibly elegant, convenient, and spacious, with no irritating columns inside the office areas. This was the sole reason why the engineers chose this unique perimeter tube design for both skyscrapers. To truly appreciate this choice, let's quickly compare the design of these offices with those found in the iconic Empire State Building. As you can see, the gigantic columns here eat a lot of useful office floor area. If you look closely, you'll notice that a single external column does not run throughout the tower's height. Instead, it's a collection of many prefabricated panels. A single panel consists of 3 columns, reaching 3 floors in height. These panels are then held together by spandrel plates. The engineers connected these panels in an ascending order of height repeatedly, rather than taking a straightforward approach. This method ensured a good stiffness to the external columns. These cute but gigantic cranes, called kangaroo cranes, played a major role in speeding up the construction work of the World Trade Center. By viewing this animation, can you tell how this innovative crane climbs up by itself?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
When the piston is activated, the crane increases its height. This interesting support structure, which can flex only towards one side, helps the crane rest at this position. At this stage, the bottom portion of the piston is retracted. Once again, the one-side flex support mechanism springs into action. Now that the crane is properly rested, it's time to attach these frames to the base in order to stabilize it. The way this crane climbs looks cool, right? If it wants to increase its height, it must simply repeat the same series of motions. When it came time to assemble the frame lock, neighboring kangaroo cranes provided assistance. The World Trade Center towers were one of the first in the United States to use these innovative cranes. Did you notice what this worker is doing here? This simple technique is in fact the reason why the towers, after being struck, held up for more than an hour before they collapsed. This is a spray foam insulation process. When sprayed on a metal surface, this special liquid creates a foam-like texture. In the case of fire, this foam can prevent the heat from reaching the steel for an hour or two, as per its ratings. This useful technique protects the building until first responders are able to make it to the scene and control the fire. The Twin Towers' trusses and columns were covered with this spray foam insulation. Now it's time for us to explore the second major component of the design, the core. Although the core occupies just 1/4 of the area, this core bears the majority of the gravity load of the tower. Each column of the core was welded to the one below it, and each had a height of around 30 to 50 meters. Later on, I-beam girders were attached at every floor. Gotcha. If you zoom in and analyze the fall of the World Trade Center tower, it's evident that what transpired was basically a sequential collapse of all of its floors. Let's learn something about the floor connection of the World Trade Center to better understand the collapse. Connecting the external columns and core at a high span of 60 feet was only possible by a truss arrangement. The beams would have sagged. To facilitate the construction process, they prefabricated parts of the floor. They then clubbed some of the trusses and secured them together by placing a steel plate over them. The trusses are connected with the columns in a rather unique fashion. These truss connections were made possible via these tiny and crucial steel seats, the main culprit of the collapse and least mentioned in the reports offered by the government.
They
Let's take a closer look at it.
Rather than welding it on.
The truss's upper cord is rested on this inverse L-shaped steel piece. This seat is then welded to the spandrel plate via these tiny standoff plates. Keep these connection details in mind, as they played a crucial role during the collapse of the towers.
Everything else is huge, isn't it, apart from those?
Interestingly, the knuckles of the truss were made to pop out of the steel plate, so that later, when concrete is poured, the rebars make the connection to the steel system stronger. Please note that in this floor design, the steel truss is exposed.
Right.
With the cast-in-place concrete, the floor of the Twin Towers are ready for the lavish, open-floor office spaces to be sold out like hotcakes. At the very top of each tower sat a fourth important structural element, the hat truss. This huge truss structure served as a bridge between the core and the external columns. The hat truss also provided support for an antenna atop the tower. Now that we've covered the entire structure of the World Trade Center towers, let's get into the physics behind...
Wow. That's really interesting so far, just to see how something like that is built for a start.
Constructed, you know, I didn't know anything about the kangaroo cranes. I mean, genius idea that, isn't it? The crane just lifting itself up.
Yeah, like you said, for speed. And I would never have thought that construction, never the core and then the outer perimeter. I've always assumed the evenness of weight rather than relying on two to carry that, because obviously ultimately it's the sag that looks like it's brought it down. But I guess, like you say, for office space, when you're looking at the design, you know, how many offices you walk around with these great big pillars in the way, and you're like, oh, that's just, you know, wouldn't it be great if we could get rid of those? You know.
So again, I don't know. I don't know if this will be covered. So was it just pure luck that they chose these buildings which were constructed in this way that then ultimately collapsed like that? You know, or if they'd have done, for example, the Empire State, it probably wouldn't have collapsed, and they could have got everybody out. You know, it was pure chance that this was built this way, that domino effect.
Are you saying? Do you think they knew?
I don't know. Did they know? Or if they didn't know, were they then surprised by what ultimately happened as well and going, crikey, we didn't even think that was going to happen?
No, that's a brilliant point, because like you say, they might have just thought, well, they're two iconic buildings next to each other. That's going to really cause something. But yeah, the actual collapse of them might have just been
even a surprise to them. But very interesting. But like I say, for all that, and then to be relying on those little bits on that, you go, ooh, okay, but you never see something like this going on, do you? Okay, let's carry on. Interesting so far.
House of Cards kind of collapse. As the hijacked jetliner crashed into the North Tower, it ruptured the maze of perimeter columns for up to 6 to 8 floors.
Right. So
This crash also damaged about 60% of the core columns. The elevators and stairwells were damaged too, trapping around 1,600 people above the tower. This impactful hit of the Boeing jetliners could have led to a tower collapse like this, but it didn't. Thanks to the strong foundation of this building, and also due to thousands of these tiny viscoelastic dampers in the building. These rubber-based dampers absorbed some impact force. In fact, these dampers provided the towers with incredible flexibility, such that on a windy day, they could sway up to 12 inches.
12?
Moreover, the towers stood strong for more than an hour after impact, even after a giant gaping hole was left in its walls of columns. This was possible because the remaining columns, both the perimeter and core columns, did a great job of carrying the weight of the building above the crash area. So if the remaining columns did such a good job, you might be curious about what exactly led to the collapse of the tower. The catalyst of the collapse was the huge increase in temperature following the crash. A large amount of jet fuel burned vigorously on those 6 to 8 floors, causing a spike in temperature. If the trusses lacked the protective thermal coating we discussed earlier in the video, the tower would likely have collapsed in as little as 10 to 15 minutes. However, thanks to the thermal insulation spray, this was delayed for over an hour. Burning fuel caused the heat to reach a whopping 1,000 degrees Celsius. Although steel does not melt at 1,000 degrees Celsius, it does surely soften and would have caused the truss to sag, as shown. Can you imagine what the effect of a sagging concrete floor would be on the perimeter tubes?
I have 2 floor designs in front of me. The first one is having a straight floor, and second one is having a floor with a sag. When I apply a force on the first design on the straight floor, this is in fact gravity load. There is no issue for the walls. They are standing strong, right? But if I apply the same force on the second design, on the sag floor design, you can see the walls are bending inward. There's a huge deflection. The same thing happened in WTC perimeter design as well. And this dent is so clear in some of the collapse videos.
This means that the weight of the sagging concrete floor would dent the perimeter columns inside. This is due to the force which is acting inward. Remember, the perimeter tubes are also weakened due to the temperature increase. Now, let's see what the effect of a dent is on a perimeter tube design.
This simple can is equivalent to a perimeter tube design. Surprisingly, such a small can is able to handle weight of 3 big UPS. But
UPSs?
If you add a small dent on the can,
see how quickly that crumbled there.
It just collapsed. And if you check the details, oh my god, it was a perfect vertical collapse. You can see that. The same thing happened in WTC perimeter tube design as well.
Similar to the experiment, when an axial force passes through a perimeter
just
tube
a small
designed with a
dent in it, wasn't it?
It just collapses at the region of the dent. This is a clear case of buckling. You've probably all experienced, or at least seen, buckling. Buckling occurs when a compressive load acts axially on a slender beam. Because of the dent, buckling happened at a much lower load. Can the strong central core save the top floors from falling down? Unfortunately, no, it can't. We've already seen how the floors are weakly connected to the core. Moreover, due to the high temperature, these connections were further weakened. During the collapse of the floors due to the dent, the core's support would simply break. With almost no connection to the core, the result is clear: the collapse of the entire top floors downwards. The mass of the top 15 floors was equivalent to the Titanic, coming in at a mind-blowing 38,000 tons. In addition, the hat truss and the Boeing were also falling down. The sudden impact force of this huge weight over the floor right below it trashed the lower floors. The perimeter tubes also almost immediately buckled, since the impact force was huge and compressive in nature. This caused an unfortunate chain reaction, and one by one, the floors kept crashing down. The weight also kept increasing as the building collapsed. When viewing footage of the tragedy...
Interesting. So, this is slightly different to how I was expecting.
Right.
Because if you look here, it's the compression of what is coming out is coming out of the bottom of the tower there. That tower's going down.
Yeah.
Tragedy. You must have surely seen the shredding of the perimeter column.
But I was expecting the weight to come down onto that bit, then that bit to come down, and it to collapse from the top down, if you know what I mean. But this is like just extreme weight being pushed on the bottom, and the bottom is just...
It's just folding, yeah, because the
folding.
weight's increasing, and the bottom...
Yeah, the overall weight...
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, from what I'd seen prior, that's how I just thought, oh my God, it's just...
Yeah.
But I didn't realise it was just collapsing one on top of the other. Oh, man.
Because, so then, you haven't even got the time it takes that to fall to sort of get out of the way. It's all coming straight down on you.
Yeah.
Another bit that he hasn't quite highlighted here, but he said, you got the central structural column. All the lift shafts and all the stairways went straight up there, whereas normally you have them on the corners of the building, don't you? So if one would have been blocked, you could have tried another one. As soon as that plane went straight through the middle of that, everything above it was all cut off. There was no way out, because all of the stairwells were already blocked, So that was another sort of issue why the people above it were all stuck there. The only place they could go was upwards. Of course, they tried helicopter rescue, but because of the height and the heat and everything coming up, that was affecting the helicopters, so they couldn't even airlift them off.
Oh my good God.
Oh, I know, mate.
I was just thinking, where was the best place to be? If you were stuck, would it be right on top?
No. You're not getting off from there, are you?
Not getting off, but you've got the most chance, I would have said. If it's coming down parallel. Do you know what I mean? You haven't got the weight underneath you. If you were stood on top, I mean, you would have died regardless, but oh mate,
falling 30 meters at a high rate of speed. Yes,
terrible.
Yeah.
All right,
we'll
keep watching.
Very interesting though. Like I said, just that tiny
buckling.
dent in that coke can.
The North Tower came down in 13 seconds, and the South Tower took just 11 seconds.
Yeah.
Did you know this exact scenario was tested before the towers were constructed?
What?
In the plane crash test, this tower design stood well enough. However, the engineers did not consider two conditions. One was the fire from the gallons of jet fuel, and the second was the size of the plane. At the time of the test, the largest plane the engineers considered was the Boeing 707, which was half the size of the one that actually hit. The One World Trade Center tower, which was erected in the honorable position of the twins, consists of measures to improve rescue strategies and the building's thermal design. In the One World Center, the engineers built a thick wall of reinforced concrete surrounding the egress stairs. This thick concrete wall acts as the core of the building. For obvious reasons, they moved away from the steel core design. During an airplane crash, the concrete core will stay strong. Regarding the floors, this time they didn't expose any of the steel structure, opting to cover it completely with concrete. This prevents any chance of floor steel structure sagging due to a rise in temperature. The government also incorporated many new regulations for building safety. With these new safety measures in place, the new One World Trade Center is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Now that you understand the physics of the collapse well, here is an interesting question for you. After being struck, the North Tower stood strong for 1 hour and 42 minutes before collapsing. However, the South Tower collapsed in just 56 minutes. What could be the reason for this time difference? The reason is the weight of the floors above the crash region. The South Tower crash happened 14 floors lower than the North Tower. This means the South Tower had to carry a much higher load during the fuel burn time. This would obviously lead to easy buckling. This is the reason why even if the North Tower was hit first, it collapsed second.
Gotcha.
Generally, during a fire accident, the stairs play a major role in evacuating the occupants. However, in this case, the stairways could only save a few people. This was mainly because most of the stairs became obstructed by gypsum debris. Also, all the stairs were located in the central core area. According to the reports, The South Tower's A staircase was the only one which was usable.
Wow.
Many people compare the 1945 Empire State Building crash with the 9/11 attack. The Empire State survived, but the World Trade Center did not. The reality is that these two events are simply incomparable when considering the size.
What's this?
1947 Empire State Building. Didn't even know that. Even when I went to visit it, I didn't even see anything about that.
So a plane's already gone into Empire State?
Okay.
Well, we don't know about that. Oh, wow. Okay. Obviously, different circumstances, different size plane.
A B-25 Mitchell bomber of the United States Air Force crashed into the north side of the Empire State on July 28, 1945. All right, we need to find out more about that. In the comments, if there is anything...
Yeah.
I have no idea.
No, mate. No idea.
And I was there last year. They didn't even tell me about that. I didn't see it anywhere in there. Maybe I didn't look in the right place. But...
All right. Let's keep going then. A little bit left. Yeah, very interesting.
Size of the airplane involved in the crash. The airplane involved in the Empire State Building incident was a tiny bomber aircraft, whereas the World Trade Center was struck by a gigantic passenger aircraft. The care engineers gave while constructing the foundation of the Twin Towers was incredible. You can see a strange concrete wall within the soil and around the building. This is known as a slurry wall, and its main duty is to prevent water intrusion from the nearby Hudson River. Look at the way they've strengthened the concrete walls using tieback cables. The engineers were able to locate a strong bedrock at a depth of 7 stories. The concrete foundation of this building progressed from there. The engineers called this new foundation technology a bathtub. Interestingly, the bathtub foundation also accommodated 2 tunnels. This strong foundation was the main reason why the impact force of such a gigantic airplane couldn't topple the building. The Twin Towers may not have collapsed if the terrorists had hit the building, say, 5 floors above the actual hit location. Or if instead of a perimeter tube design, a normal steel skeleton column design was used. It may also have been avoided if the engineers had used a strong joint at the floor core connection. Even the terrorists behind the attack likely could not have imagined all the physics that happened after the plane crash, or even anticipated such a monumental building collapse. Sometimes, physics is cruel.
You can see the huge amount of debris which was formed after the collapse of Twin Towers. Surprisingly, when they cleared the debris, you can see a column which is standing strong and brave. This is a column from the central core of the building. I know even after all this scientific explanation about the collapse, I will be able to read in the comment section, what about WTC-7 tower? It got collapsed, even though it was untouched by the airplane.
Yeah.
There is a scientific explanation for that as well, but not in this video. This video is already 15 minutes long. Just give me 1 week of time, we will cover that portion as well. Now about this brave column, it is currently shifted to a museum dedicated to WTC Memorial. And this column is still standing strong there. But if you like to see this channel to stay strong, please support us on Patreon. We are not doing well financially.
Very good. I mean, they did a very good job of explaining it in a simple and understandable way for even us to cotton on. Yeah, they didn't go into World Trade Center 7, which was the smaller hotel one, wasn't it? That collapsed as well.
Yeah, it wasn't even hit.
And wasn't even hit.
I guess it would just be the vibration or the
everything else,
the impact around it. Yeah, maybe it adds bad foundations. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, brilliant from a point of view of, you know, understanding physics and also, you know, horrendous circumstances of that. But to understand why it's come down, I totally get it now, because before I had no understanding on why that would have happened. So,
and as you say, you know, the fact that the one stood for 1 hour and 40, the other one was less than an hour, you know, just where they were impacted, size of the aircraft, heat of the aviation fuel, small connectors, loads of factors went into that to make it
it's just so sad, isn't it? It's just so you know, like you say, the factors of that, you know, the size of the plane, the fuel that was in the plane, the heat, you know, it's like a project that man.
And you know, the guys sort of tested out the theory of a plane thing, but again, you know, they never envisaged that planes would be twice the size as they were when they did the test. They probably went over the central structure in one set of staircase, but they thought, well, you know, what are the odds of you not being able to get out of all of these? It's just on and on, isn't it? It's your worst nightmare ever. But very good. Thank you very much, Amanda, for suggesting that one. And it's very well explained. There you go. If you learned something today, it's always a good day when you learn something new.
It is. Okay. Well, thanks for watching today with us. If you've learnt that as well, understand a lot more about the physics behind it. So yeah. All right. Thanks so much. Till tomorrow.
Thank you. We'll be back soon with something completely different. And goodbye from him over there. Laters.